Welcome to Make EdTech 100. I'm LindyHoc, educator, K-12 EdTech advisor, and your host. This is a podcast where we keep it real about what actually works in classrooms. No hype, no overwhelm, just practical strategies, honest stories, and tools that make a real difference for teachers and students. So come along with me on a journey to make EdTech 100. Let's start with 3 scenarios. I want you to use your imagination to envision the following 3 scenarios. First, a high school student has a laptop open. They are in a tool called Book Creator, building a digital picture book to explain fractions to second graders as their capstone project. They are writing, they are illustrating, they are recording their own voice. They are making decisions about how to communicate an idea to a real audience. They are completely in the driver's seat. So that's scenario 1. Now, second scenario. A different kid, but at the same school in the same grade, is sitting in front of a laptop, completing an assignment that is basically a digital worksheet. There are maybe a few videos, but other than that, it is the same content as a paper handout, just on a screen. No creation, no decisions, just passive clicking, consuming, and answering questions. And third scenario, a kid that attends the same school, but not at school. So the kid isn't at school, but it's at 10 p.m. at night. They're lying in bed. They're doom scrolling through social media. The algorithm is feeding them body image content. They haven't looked up in a couple of hours. All 3 of these scenarios involve technology and a screen. But tell me that these 3 uses of that technology are the same. Tell me that they belong in the same policy conversation. Tell me that banning or limiting screen time addresses all 3 of those scenarios in the same way. And yet right now, all 3 of those uses of technology by kids the same age are being folded into one word: screens. And the solution being proposed is the same for all of them. Less, fewer devices, pull back, ban, go back to paper and pencil, etc. The first scenario, the student was in Book Creator. They are also using a screen. And if we can't tell the difference between that experience and the passive use of technology to watch videos and answer multiple choice questions, we are not ready to make good decisions for kids. Today's episode is about making that distinction, because all screen time is not created equal. And until we start talking about it that way, we're going to keep having the wrong conversation. So why are we talking about this right now? Because the pressure to have an opinion is real, and it's coming from every direction. Schools, school boards, legislators, parents, community members, the media. Media seems to be the big driver here. You can't open your social channels without seeing another story about the technology backlash in schools, essentially. School device bans, school removing devices from classrooms, teachers going back to paper and pencil. It seems I can't open my social channels anymore without seeing a story or a post about the technology and education backlash. Now, I'm fully aware that it could 100% be my algorithm feeding me that content, but that is the reality of what I'm seeing right now. So to answer this, I've been working on an episode for several weeks to present my side of the story. I got extremely busy there. I've been in a pile of different schools working with teachers. I got to do a student summit and teach high school kids. So it's been a wonderful couple last months of getting, and the more I've been working with teachers and kids and in schools the last couple months, the more I want to share with you, and the more thoughts I have that I want to share with you is coming out, but I haven't had time to sit down and actually record this episode. So I'm finally getting to it today. The other thing that happened, I got super, super busy. The other thing that happened was I started writing and outlining what I wanted to talk about in this episode. And it quickly got bigger and bigger and bigger and started turning into LindyHoc's PhD, or what do they call it? Magnum opus. No joke. Because there's so much to this. This is a very nuanced conversation that is not coming across as nuanced in the media and a lot of the conversations being had around it. Moral of the story: there is so much to cover and discuss on this topic of screen time. I realize that this is likely going to have to be multiple episodes. So what you are going to hear on today's episode is not the end of what I have to say by any means. It is literally just the beginning to get you thinking about this and maybe thinking about it a little bit differently. And I am going to have some more episodes on this. I also, in this episode, tried to bring in some other voices so you can see that this is not just an IMO. Maybe I should call it an LMO, an LHMO, LindyHoc opinion. No, in my opinion. No, that didn't work. Ignore that. I tried to do a little play on IMO and it didn't work there. I want to acknowledge that this conversation is happening for real reasons. And this episode and my response to everything going on around the screen time debate right now is not meant to diminish the concerns. There are some real legitimate concerns out there, and I'll talk more about that. The headlines are everywhere. I've seen quotes that lawmakers in around 16 states are debating restrictions on classroom technology. Utah just passed one in their latest state legislative session, a limit on screen time, essentially. Parents and legislators are saying laptops in classrooms are, quote, poisoning kids. A researcher tested before the U.S. Senate and compared educational technology to anthrax, as in you don't try to make anthrax better, you just get rid of it. Yeah, that really happened. Again, I get it. There are legitimate concerns underneath all of that noise. I think comparing it to anthrax is a little extreme, but let's not go there. The research on social media and adolescent mental health is serious. Platforms are designed to be addictive. These social media algorithms in particular, they're feeding kids body image content, exploiting their dopamine systems, engineering endless scrolling, and that warrants real attention and real regulation. I 100% back that. The attention span concerns teachers are seeing every day in their classrooms are very real. I see it when I'm visiting classrooms in schools. I saw it over the last couple months a lot, and I see it with the kids in my life. I'm not here to dismiss any of that or diminish these concerns. Again, what I am here to do is name something that I think is getting completely lost in this conversation. And that is, we are not talking about the same technology. And because we keep using the same word for different things, we keep ending up with very blunt policy responses to what is actually a very nuanced problem. Here's what I mean. When people say screens right now, they might mean any of these things. A personal smartphone running a social media algorithm, a Chromebook with a digital worksheet, a skill and drill practice program that students click through for 30 or 45 minutes every day, or a student in book reader building something real for a real life audience, or a student in Snorkl explaining how to calculate percentages in real time. None of those scenarios are the same thing. They don't function the same way in the brain. They don't have the same research base. They don't produce the same outcomes, and they shouldn't have the same policy response. Adam Sparks is a great colleague. He is an English teacher who founded Short Answer, which if you've never seen Short Answer, go to myshortanswer.com. It's an amazing platform to help teach writing skills. Really, really solid, super backed in research. Adam has a Substack, and he did a whole post on why, basically like why EdTech was worth saving or something like that. I don't think that was the That was the exact title. It's something along those lines. And this is a quote from his post. It actually was a 2-part post. That's how much he also had to say about this. He had to split it into 2 parts. So this is from one of those parts. Technology is a medium, not an intervention. Outcomes depend on implementation, and blanket bans ignore thoughtful instructional design. The right unit of analysis for EdTech is use case, not presence. Use case, not presence. Think about that. Use case, not presence. It's about instructional design. Teachers' decision making of how and when technology aids learning in powerful ways and when it does not. Use case. It's all about the use case. It's about how the teacher uses it, not about the sheer presence or existence of technology in a learning environment. Hold on to that for the rest of this episode, and honestly for every conversation you have about this topic going forward. The second thing I want to name is this. It's not really about the technology. I said this earlier today in a conversation about AI and the skills we need and AI literacy. It's not about the technology. I know that sounds counterintuitive in an episode literally all about screen time and technology, but stay with me. Another quote here. This one's from Matt Miller, the author of Ditch That Textbook. Matt shared on his LinkedIn recently that the biggest issue, I believe, isn't the mere existence of instructional technology. It's the way it's being used and the instructional practices that teachers choose to use with them. The problem is the default to technology, that we do things with tech no matter what, without making the important instructional decisions by teachers who know their kids and have great experience and expertise. That's it. Right there. That is the whole thing. A Chromebook is not the problem. A Chromebook with no intentional instructional decision behind it, that's the problem. An iPad running a skill drip program for 45 minutes a day because it's easy to gather data from. That's the problem. Technology being used only as a reward. That's the problem. Paperless classrooms. This was a big deal. Oh gosh, let me think. I want to say 10 to 15, oh gosh. Yeah, we'll say 10. 10 years ago, 10 to maybe 15 years ago, there was a lot out there about paperless classrooms and let me help you build a paperless classroom. I was like, I don't want you to have a paperless classroom. No, there's a time and place. And mind you, the push for that was there was a big push to lower printing costs. That is not a reason to go paperless. That is not a reason to use technology. If the only use of technology in your school is purely because we want to lower printing costs, that is the problem. To provide some accountability to all of us, I want to ask a question. Has the system done a good enough job equipping teachers with the access, the skills, the time, the curriculum needed to ensure that devices are used intentionally? Have we helped teachers identify the moments where technology generally change what's possible versus the moments where paper would maybe serve learning better and provide moderation to screen versus no screen or tech versus no tech time? That was actually 2 questions. 2 loaded questions there for you. I don't think we have. I mean, I will say I'm a little bit biased here because I work in the system every day. This is what I do, is help prepare teachers to do that. And I know what good, healthy, powerful, responsible uses of technology and screens, what that looks like and what that involves and what it doesn't. This is something we can fix. And the fix is not banning devices. Or maybe not banning, but rolling them back or moving to computer labs. I've seen that one a lot recently. Going away from one-to-one. That is not the fix. The fix is getting serious about how we prepare teachers to use those devices. The devices need to be there. They have to be there for so many reasons. They need to be there. The problem is making sure that teachers have everything they need to use them for powerful things, not skill and drills. not answering multiple choice questions. The third thing, and this brings us back to where we started, third big idea I want to pull out in this episode is the idea that all screen time is not created equal. I've been saying this for years, by the way. This is not something that I just came up with in response to this big screen time debate. I've been saying this forever. All screen time is not created equal. I go round and round, which one's better? I need English teachers to help me. All screen time is not created equal, or not all screen time is created equal. What is the better English there? Regardless, I think it's the same point, just different wording. This is my North Star in this conversation, and it's the framework I want you and every educator to have in your back pocket when someone asks you about screens or tech in schools. There's a massive difference between technology that puts students in the driver's seat versus technology that keeps them in the passenger seat. That's the creation versus consumption, the active versus passive use. A student making decisions and building something, creating something, using their voice, sharing out with an authentic audience versus a student clicking through Q&A sequences, completely different. Not all screen time is created equally, Completely different uses of screen time in those two scenarios. I want number one. I don't want number two. I think, side quest here, I have been really thinking about how I explain to others what I do. Most people don't understand it. And that's partially on me for maybe not explaining it well. It's hard to get out in an elevator pitch of what I do. And I don't think my elevator pitch has been correct. And I've had some experiences, especially in the last few months, amidst all this media business about tech in schools and anti-tech, and tech is terrible and always terrible. No happy medium. It's just always terrible, right? There's no centrist approach here. It's just the extreme that it's always terrible. I decided that I think when I explain to others what I do, I'm going to start not even using the word technology in it. Because when people hear technology, they think of the latter example I gave you, like students just passively staring at a screen, watching videos, answering multiple choice questions. That is not what I envision. But again, I live in this world. This is what I do for a living. So I envision the former. I envision the student creating, recording themselves, sharing, advancing their speaking and listening skills, all the things. I envision Book Creator and Snorkl, just to give two tool examples there. I'm not going to call out. I'm going to be nice, and I'm not going to call out any names for the tools that I don't want to see. But if you're an educator, I'm guessing you could probably create a long list of the drill and kill type tools that, yeah, they're just that. They're drill and kill, right? That's not what I want to see. Okay, back to the purpose here. So the former example, I was using the example of Book Creator. The student is writing and recording and illustrating. They're in the driver's seat. They're driving. When a student is doom scrolling, they're not even in the car, right? So they're not even the passenger. If you're doing some sort of skill and drill type tool, the student maybe is the passenger. They're definitely not driving. But if you've got like a doom scroll situation going on, then the algorithm is driving and they're just along for the ride. Now, one of the follow-up episodes I want to do on this, I'm just going to plant the seed right now, is I did a webinar on this just a couple weeks ago, is the idea that there is such thing as a productive scroll. There is 100% doom scroll. I doom scroll, but I also productive scroll. And we can explicitly teach how to productive scroll and not just doom scroll. Hold that thought. We're going to come back to that. So those two examples, the student in the driver's seat creating with Book Creator versus the doom scroll, the algorithm's driving it, they're not even in the car, let alone the passenger seat. Those are like two ends of the spectrum. And there's like whole spectrum in between those two extremes that we need to be honest about, right? That's where we get the drill programs, the digital worksheets. They might feel interactive, but are really just digitized practice. And we need to ask ourselves whether those are the best use of the time that we have with kids, because that's really what this is about, time. Teachers have very limited number of hours with students, and every instructional decision is a decision about how to spend that time. I talk to teachers a lot about this with technology. I always say, don't let the technology waste your instructional time. If something's not going right, we do a plan B, we maybe do a plan C, and if we've wasted a few minutes on plan B and C and it didn't work, then we abort mission and we go to something else. Don't waste instructional time. So it's all about the instructional time. So when we think about how do we maximize instructional time, we want to use technology in a way that generally transforms what's possible for a learner. That earns that limited instructional time. Technology that's just there because it's there, that's what we need to question. Again, this isn't we shouldn't question technology. I honestly do think we should question technology use in schools, because I see a lot of technology use that I'm like, ooh, like that's how you're using, like it's all about moderation, right? We don't want students staring at screens all day. It's all about moderation. And I'm like, that's how we're using the screen time and that limited instructional time. I do think we need to question that and give it a harder look. But again, that doesn't mean just completely take all the technology away. That is really dangerous and really unfortunate. Another quote, Mary Beth Hertz, she is a longtime educator. She's really a force of good and shares a lot about education and ed tech and all of the things. She posted on her LinkedIn, many of the screens are melting students' brains. People here in the US seem to forget that at the same time that more tech was entering the classroom, NCLB, No Child Left Behind, was the new law of the land, followed by Race to the Top and other programs that turned classrooms into test prep factories. Until we face that reality, we are just scapegoating to avoid doing the hard work. There is so much more to the conversation around academics and mental health than technology. That's the moral of that quote from Mary Beth. So much more. Technology, is it a problem? Yes. Can it negatively contribute to academics and mental health? Yes. Is it the only thing negatively affecting academics and mental health? Absolutely not. There is real hard work to do here, but not the work of banning or rolling back devices, the work of getting intentional about how we use them, the work of equipping teachers to make smart instructional decisions, the work of distinguishing between the technology that's harming kids and the technology that's genuinely empowering them and helping them. I always tell educators I work with, I want you to be a centrist. I want you to land in the middle of the spectrum, and I want you to teach your students how to leverage the powerful, great, good parts of technology while mitigating the bad, negative parts of technology. That's the middle. That's the centrist. That's the conversation I want us to be having. Let's bring this one home. We are in the middle of a loud, fast-moving conversation about technology and kids and schools. It is not going away. It's going to get louder, and everyone's going to be asked to have an opinion. Here's the opinion that I'd encourage you to have, or at least part of the opinion I encourage you to have. That's very pompous of me to say, here's your opinion. Here's part of the opinion I'd encourage you to have. Yes, addictive social media algorithms are a real problem, and regulations targeting those platforms are needed. 100%. I would love to see regulations on social media algorithms and the addictive qualities that we know are there, harming people of all ages, but especially our most vulnerable populations like kids. But let me get even more specific about that. The regulations we need aren't on the devices. They're on the companies engineering the addictive experiences. Make the algorithm accountable, not the device. Yes, Passive technology use that doesn't serve learning needs to be examined, 100%. And yes, a lot of what's happening in classrooms right now lives in that passive zone. I know that's a bold statement of me, but I truly believe, I don't think we would be having this conversation and things happening in the media and schools going back to computer labs if most of technology use in schools was the creative use of technology, not the passive use of technology. If it was putting students in the driver's seat, not the passenger seat. But also, yes, there is technology in classrooms right now that is genuinely transformative. Transformative for students as a whole, and also transformative for specific students that have unique or individual needs. It's giving students a voice, it's giving them agency, it's giving them the chance to create something real and share it with a real, authentic audience. Those tools deserve to be protected, not swept up in a blanket ban because we couldn't be bothered to make the distinction. All screen time is not created equal. We are not talking about the same technology here. And it is not really about the technology. It's about the decisions we make around it and empowering teachers and giving them the skills, the access, the curriculum, the knowledge, the training that they need to make the putting students in the driver's seat decisions around technology use. Those students in my scenarios that were using Book Creator and Snorkl, those are who this conversation is actually about, and we need to keep them in the room as we continue to have this conversation. As I said, this is not the last you're going to hear from me on this topic. Imagine that. I want to dig in, but for reals, I want to dig into the research. I want to give you some real examples of tools and uses that are generally transforming learning. I gave you a couple tools today and some very vague uses and ideas, but I want to dig into that more. I want to make sure that you have the language to push back when someone tries to lump all screen time and technology together so that you can say to them, not all technology is created equal. Not all screen time is created equal. We are not talking about the same technology use and the same screen time. More coming. Stay tuned. Thanks for joining Make EdTech 100. I know educator time is valuable, and I'm honored you choose to spend yours with me. For more EdTech strategies you can use tomorrow and ways to bring me to your school or event, head to LindyHoc.com. If this episode resonated, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I'm LindyHoc. Go forth and make EdTech 100.